Hello again, darts fans. It's Dan Dawson in association with The Sportsman. I am in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. I'm actually in the players' practice room at their hotel ahead of the second night of the double-header of Premier League action from Ahoy, Rotterdam. Last night we saw 11,000 fans in that arena, most of them dressed in orange, to cheer on Michael van Gerwen and Raymond van Barneveld. And they were desperately hoping that Barney could complete this fairy tale to find some way of rejuvenating his Premier League campaign. And it just did not happen. I thought he'd be inspired by this venue and these fans, these adoring fans who cheered him on to beat Michael van Gerwen here last year. But it just did not happen. There was nothing left. The tank was empty for Barney, and he was beaten pretty heavily by Daryl Gurney. I got that one wrong. We said that Michael van Gerwen would get the job done against Peter Wright, and indeed he did. But the other three games, it was just so frustrating. The opening game of the night, I said Gerwen Price and Michael Smith would draw. Gerwen Price missed a couple of darts to get that draw, and Michael Smith nicked it. I said that James Wade had beat Dimitri van den Berg. Well, Wade averaged more than 103, and he hit 7 180s. And yet Dimitri was so good that he still got a draw in that game. The other match saw Rob Cross against Mensur Suljovic. I said that Rob Cross would beat Mensur Suljovic, and at 5-1 up, having not missed a dart at double, it was looking safe as houses. And then he just missed, and missed again, and missed again and again and again. 11 consecutive misses at double for Rob Cross, and Mensur Suljovic somehow turned that game around. It could have been a great night for us on the betting. It turned out to be a rather disappointing one. But where are we going to make our money tonight? We don't have long to wait because it's a double header in Rotterdam, so we've got more action this evening. And we start with Daryl Gurney against Mensur Suljovic. Now, one of the themes from last night was this breeze or wind on the stage. With 11,000 fans in there, I think it's just convection currents. They've done lots of tests in the arena. It's not doors open or air conditioning or anything like that. It's just there's so many people in there, you are getting a kind of movement of air, and it is affecting some players more than others. Daryl Gurney seemed particularly to struggle with it. Mensur Suljovic certainly was struggling in the early stages of his game with Rob Cross. It might tonight be about who deals better with these conditions. I'm not expecting masses of 180s in any of the games, to be honest. I just think that it's a little bit tricky. It's not ideal conditions for these guys to play their best. It's about who can deal with the conditions better. Now, the way that Mensur and Gurney both struggled at times last night leads me to believe that it might be a bit of a scrappy encounter. And in scrappy encounters, Daryl Gurney is usually pretty good. And when you look at the odds with Bet365, it's 8 to 5 for Daryl Gurney, 6 to 5 for Mensur, and 7 to 2 the draw. When you factor in that Daryl Gurney has his eyes on the playoff spots now after that win last night, when you factor in he's got a better head-to-head record against Mensur Suljovic, 7 wins from their 12 meetings, I think just look at the value in this game. It might not be perfect conditions, so why not just look where you can make some money? And Daryl Gurney at 8 to 5 I think is the solid bet. Peter Wright last night just did not get going against Michael van Gerwen. It was very nearly a whitewash defeat for Snakebite Wright in this venue where he beat MVG 12 months ago. Gerwen Price should have got the draw. He's just lacking a little bit of killer instinct, missing darts to get that draw against Michael Smith last night. He missed darts to beat Michael van Gerwen for the first time in his career at the weekend. He has had too many draws so far in this Premier League campaign, despite playing infinitely better than he did in last year's tournament. I think that Gerwen Price is probably the better bet at 6 to 4 than Peter Wright at 5 to 4. But the problem is, has he got that instinct, that killer drive to get over the line? Maybe you want to look at the price or draw option, which is 8 to 13. He's only beaten Peter Wright a couple of times in his career, but I think that now is a time where Gerwen Price really can start to push on and start to right some of the wrongs in those head-to-head stats with certain players. The next game sees Rob Cross taking on tonight's contender, Jeffrey Dawson, the Black Cobra. Now, these two are right up there in the guys who are hitting more 180s than anybody on the tour. Jeffrey Dawson is a phenomenally talented player, a bit like Dimitri van den Berg. When he gets on a big stage in front of TV cameras, special things can happen. This will be completely new for Jeffrey. He was there last night as a spectator, but he's there playing tonight. But it's not something he'll have experienced before, despite the fact he's played at Ali Pali at the Worlds, and despite the fact he made it to the semi-finals of the World Match Play. Now, Jeffrey Dawson did play Rob Cross at the World Championship in the very first round, or his second round game rather. It was Rob Cross's opening match. And Jeffrey Desvan played really, really well, but Rob Cross still found a way to beat him. It was an absolute thriller. Came from behind, won 3-1 after going 1-0 down. I think that Rob Cross wins this one again, even though he had that aberration of missing loads and loads of doubles in the second half of his game with Mensur Suljovic. I think 4-7, Rob Cross to reassert himself in the Premier League. When he has had a blip so far this year, he has hit back straight away and fired in a ton-plus average. It may not be a ton-plus average because, as I say, the conditions aren't perfect, but I still think he's got enough to get the job done against the Black Cobra. Raymond van Barneveld against Michael van Gerwen. It is the big game of the night in many respects, but it becomes a dead rubber for Raymond van Barneveld because even a win is not enough. Now, is it going to let him play with freedom, with no pressure, and he can go and have a special way to bow out in front of this crowd? Or is Michael van Gerwen going to absolutely wallop him? I'm sorry to say, I think it's the latter. I would love to see Barney, get the send-off that his career deserves in the Premier League. He's a former winner of this title, but Michael van Gerwen looks like he's back to business. Not playing his best stuff, but he's regularly averaging a ton or more. And I think not only can van Gerwen win, that's 2-9, you could look at van Gerwen minus 3.5 legs at 5-6 to get your odds up. I think that MVG can do this while only dropping 3 or fewer legs against Barney. And unfortunately for him, his Premier League career may be ending with a whimper, not with the bang that he hoped. That brings us to the final game of the night, James Wade and Michael Smith. Now, Michael Smith did avoid elimination by getting the win yesterday, but it was by the skin of his teeth against Gerwyn Price. James Wade somehow played amazingly and didn't get the victory against Dimitri van den Berg, who was taking out big checkouts left, right and centre. It's a night where I'm not expecting loads of 180s in many of the other games, but this one, I think you could be tempted to look at the 180s market in this, because James Wade has hit 29 in the Premier League and Michael Smith has hit 26. James Wade hit 7 maximums last night. Evidently the wind is not bothering him that much, even though he walked off stage 2 legs into his game with Dimitri. I think that over 180s, and it's only 5.5 you've got to beat at 4-6 is a very tempting market, but I would be looking at James Wade to win the match because he's actually the underdog, 6-4 for the machine compared to 5-4 for Michael Smith. And when you look at how they've played respectively so far in their Premier League campaigns, you've got to look at the value with James Wade. So, if you were going to put in an knacker, you go Gurney to win the first game, Price or draw in the next one, Rob Cross to beat Jeffrey Desvan, the contender, Michael van Gerwen minus 3.5 legs, and then James Wade to win. You will look at an accumulator of almost 30-1, 29-1. I think that's where I'll be putting my pound this evening. We'll see if we get a little bit more luck in the rub of the green than we did last night on a very, very strange and emotional and occasionally windy night in Rotterdam. Ahoy! It could all turn for us tonight. It just won't for Raymond van Barneveld.